Okay, well, thank you, Cyprus and Spark Plus for acting as host today, and thank you for the viewers or listeners. Antilles Gold is a company listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, obviously, symbol AAU, about to list on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, where we're seeing a fair bit of interest in the company coming from retail investors, in particular in Germany and Switzerland and so on. But why Cuba? Cuba, if you go to the second slide, or can I do that? Keep going. Okay. I won't dwell on this too much other than to say that Cuba is an interesting country. It's been very extensively explored. Russian, Cuban, Canadian mining companies, but development opportunities there and exploration opportunities have been substantially overlooked by the international mining industry for probably 30 years. The only reasonable sized development that's happened in that time is Trafigura. They have a 49% interest with the same party, same government mining company that we do, Minera. And Trafigura and Minera developed the Castellanos base metals mine, which was commissioned in 2017. And Trafigura purchased the copper, lead, zinc concentrates from that mine, and are probably interested in expanding their operation in Cuba, from what I hear. So we have a joint venture, as I said, with Minera. I'll talk a little bit later about how we stand as a minority shareholder. But I think if we go to the next slide, it really talks, this slide is headed up why Antilles Gold is comfortable operating in Cuba. It should really say why Antilles Gold is attracted to operating in Cuba, because quite apart from these dot points here, the most important thing for us is the extensive opportunities, or exceptional opportunities actually, that exist in Cuba for exploration and for mine developments. And this is all related to decades of exploration, but lack of activity. So there are many, many opportunities there. And we have been one of the first movers to go into Cuba, other than Trafigura. We went there first in 2015, negotiated a joint venture agreement, took 2 years, 2018 and 19. Finally got government approval to the joint venture late in 2020. And James Tyers, who's with me on this presentation, who is our director and responsible for activities in Cuba, opened an office there in Havana early last year. Yep. And got stuck into, firstly, a drilling program on our first project. And if we go really, well, maybe I'll just stay on the slide for a second. Sorry. The important thing for a minority shareholder is that the foreign investment law protects a 49% shareholder. Even though it's the government want to be seen to be controlling foreign companies or joint venture companies, the reality is equal number of directors on the board, no casting vote by the chairman. The chairman is in fact there by rotation. Minera for the first 3 years, then Antilles Gold appoints a chairman for the next 3 years, and so on. So it's a very comfortable relationship. We appoint all senior management to the projects. We have a foreign bank account which holds all funds going into the country, all paying foreign suppliers, comes out of the foreign bank account. It doesn't come out of Cuba. The only funds that go to Cuba are those that are remitted for local expenditure. And even the dividends that are paid to our Cuban partner have to be signed off by either James or I, coming out of that foreign bank account. So it's a very tidy situation there for a foreigner acting in that country. And as I said, the foreign investment law not only protects us in the mining sector, but the same law applies to the numerous parties that are building major hotels in Cuba, mainly Spanish and German, people coming into the agricultural industry, rehabilitating sugar plantations, sugar mills, and so on. And that foreign investment law is a very important element of our decision to go into the country, quite apart from the business opportunities that exist. One of the other important things is having the government as a partner. We're able to fast track the project permitting. And as an example to that, our environmental permitting on the first development we're going to do there, 6 months. In Western Australia would probably be 2 to 3 years. So we're very comfortable with that relationship with the government mining company. Go to the next slide, thanks. We won't dwell on this. We've got an experienced bunch of directors and senior management. James and I have worked together for nearly 20 years. We've put a few projects together, companies, and one which you might have heard of, Mount Gibson Iron, been very successful in Western Australia. Before that, I developed Portman Mining, South Blackwater Coal, and so forth. Had a lot of experience. Yerga Cario is a non-executive director, also very experienced executive with Rio Tinto. Angela Pankhurst, a non-executive director, very senior accountant, was a managing director of a gold mining company in Kazakhstan. She's pretty talented. And James, as I said, is a geologist by background with an MBA, and he and I have worked together for 20 years, and we like to build companies, and that's what we're doing in Cuba. As far as the management's concerned, important manager, very important, in fact, is our technical director, Dr. Ji, Chinese-Canadian, PhD in metallurgist, and one of the world leaders in knowing how to float and produce concentrate from sulfide gold deposits. He's a very important member of our staff. He was 12 years of technical director for a company called Eldorado, very successful Canadian company with sulfide gold deposits and mines in Greece, Turkey, and so on, middle of Europe. Chris Granger, also very important. He's our exploration manager. He's resident in Colombia. He's been there for 12 years, and prior to that, he was in Brazil and so forth, in Latin America, speaks fluent Spanish, PhD in geology. And he has been very successful in finding very large ore bodies, deposits that have been successful. One for a company called Continental Gold, went on to being having a market capitalisation of 1.2 billion. Another company that he found exploration successes went on to be sold for about 800 million. He really recognises, and I'll talk about it in a moment, recognises the potential that we hold in our exploration plays in Cuba. Steve Mertens, very important, mining engineer, young Australian guy, married to a Spanish lady, speaks Spanish, worked for us for 5 years in the Dominican Republic before going to Cuba, and he's the general manager for the joint venture company. Michael Wachner is joining us next month. He is currently working in Dominican Republic on the Barrick mine expansion. Again, Spanish speaking, very experienced project manager who will manage the construction of our first mine, which will start early next year, and I'll get to in a moment. Thank you. So the near-term development projects that we've got, firstly, we have an open pit gold silver mine at a location called La Demahagua. It's located on an island called the Isle of Youth in southwest Cuba. And that will start construction early next year. The definitive feasibility study will finish at the end of this year. Construction starts January. The commissioning will be about mid-2024. We're planning to produce approximately 100,000 ounces of gold per year, or gold equivalent. Of that 100,000 ounces, 85,000 ounces are gold and 15,000 are the silver contribution, but converted to gold. That will be produced in a sulfide concentrate for about 8 to 9 years. And that concentrate will be sold to a major international trading company with whom we have signed an agreement to negotiate such an offtake. The second project will follow very quickly after that, and that's an oxide deposit. Very simple, gold and silver. Not a big mine, but very rich, and I'll explain a little bit more about that shortly. That'll produce a concentrate also. And the third one is to reopen a mine which was producing copper and zinc concentrates, And it's one of 4 mines that were operated by a Soviet mining company, Russian mining company. And when perestroika occurred, the Russians abandoned those 4 mines and just walked out of the country. They've been dormant for about 20 years more. We're going to reopen one of the mines, and probably all 4 in due course, but we're only studying one at the moment, and that has a inferred resource on it. Again, quite small volume, but 400 or 500 million, I think 500 or 600 million dollars in the ground value of copper and zinc. So we've got 3 properties in a row that we can develop. And I might add that the second and the third are so small in capital cost that they'll be able to be funded by the first. So once we get the first project running, La Demahagua, the other 2 follow. Thank you. Well, these are the 3 basic locations where we're operating. The La Demahagua concession, you can see, is on a little island. Commissioning, as I've mentioned, in mid-24. And I don't think we need to go any more detail on that at the moment. We plan to go underground for 10 years after that initial 8 years of open pit. And that probably has about a 10-year life based on the drilling that's been done in the past. The New Horizons concession has got the Antonio copper zinc open pit mine that can be reopened. And on the El Pilar concession, the prize that I'm going to talk to you in a moment is at El Pilar. It's a big porphyry deposit, but the Oxide Deposit is expected to be a small mine, but very rich, opened up in 2025. Thank you. So our exploration projects, I think we could skip over this slide. The near-term cash flow, we have 2 structures in Cuba. One is the joint venture company with Geominera. It's called Minera La Victoria, and it was established by our partner Geominera, transferring to the joint venture company a 2 million ounce ore body. And for that, they were issued $13.5 million worth of shares. So they have 51% of the joint venture company. What we're doing is we're contributing 13 million to the joint venture company for our 49% of shares. We started contributing in Q1 last year, and we carry on slowly but surely contributing to that to March 2023, next year. We've actually, of that 13 million, we have contributed 7 to date. We have 6 outstanding. We'll do another 2 million by the end of this year. That will finish the definitive feasibility study for that project. And the 4 remaining that we have to provide will be spent on mining infrastructure early next year. And that's the limit of our expenditure on that project. And as I said before, when that project's up and running, it will fund the next 2 projects without us having to contribute equity. We have an obligation to arrange finance, not to find it, not to fund it, not to provide it, but to arrange it. And we're advanced in that area. And that will be further advanced once we have the 2nd level scoping study completed in 2 months, and then finalised once we have the definitive feasibility study finished at the end of this year. So the other structure is called an international economic assessment. It's equivalent to an exploration agreement between us and Geominera. And what that does is it permits us to assess the development potential of previously explored mineral deposits. And we do that, and if we like what we see after that preliminary work, we then nominate those properties to go to a joint venture for future development. And we have two properties in this agreement at the moment, and a 3rd will be added shortly. I'll go to them specifically in a moment when we talk exploration, if I may, so I can keep going. Thank you. So the La Demahagua project's on an island. It's about 60 nautical miles off the coast. It's at 900 hectare mining concession. It's very flat, 20 meters above sea level. It's 35 kilometres from the port city of Nueva Gerona, which is the capital, and it's connected. The site's already connected to water, electricity, and fibre optic cable to the mine site. Thank you. So we're sort of ready to go. We have a JORC resource on this particular property, La Demagua, the open pit, and you can see the total there is about 10.3 million tonnes at 2.74 grams of gold per tonne. So there's 908,000 ounces in this open pit area and 9.7 million ounces of silver. So that's the resource we attack, and I think that the actual mine plan will finish up recovering about 80% of that gold content, so about 800,000 ounces over 8 years. Thank you. I don't think I'll spend too much time on this metallurgical test work other than to say that the concentrate we produce will have a grade of 37.5 grams of gold and 500 grams of silver. The flotation recoveries are pretty standard for the industry. And as I said before, we're in the throes of negotiating an offtake agreement for the life of mine with a major international metal trader. And we have the mutual aim of formalising this agreement in November this year. Thank you. We've produced a scoping study, or an initial scoping study, and this will be upgraded in a couple of months, probably September. But for the moment, this first project will cost us about $75 million total development cost, including the $13 million we spend on pre-development activity. The original scoping study was only done for 6 years, but since this was done, the JORC resources for the project have increased quite substantially, and the mine, when we do the new scoping study, the life of mine will be extended to eight years at the same quantity of production, so about 100,000 ounces per year. I suppose going right down to the nub of it, the life of mine cash surplus on the over 6 years is about 325 million, and that's for the joint venture company. I've got to point out we're only 49% of that, but for us, our share of that cash flow, right down at the bottom, you can see is 159 million over 6 years, and that'll go up, extend out to 8, be higher, and 159 million is our return on $13 million investment. So it's not a bad return. 10, 12 times your money over 6 years. We'll go to the next one, thank you. I won't dwell on this other than to say we're planning an underground mine. When we first introduced to Germanera and looked at this project, we found that there was 50,000 metres of historic drilling. So we were able to model that to determine a 2 million ounce resource. And we are looking at the open pit, as I said, of about 1 million ounces. And there's about 1 million ounces left potentially underground. And the indications are that we will be able to develop a mine there that will last for about 10 years and produce about 65,000 ounces of gold equivalent per year. Thank you. Now, this is an interesting one. We have this El Pilar porphyry deposit. Let's see how we're going for time. And at the surface of the porphyry deposit, and I might let James talk about this, there is an oxide cap, and it's very rich in gold and underlying that, the copper. And this will be our second mine and follow the first by a factor of about a year. But James, you might just explain how this sits over the top of the porphyry.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So yes, as Brian's suggesting, there's this oxide zone over the porphyry. The phyllic cap has been mostly eroded away, and we have a weathering zone there of, say, 40 metres. So what we're seeing there in that first 40 metres is a gold-rich zone, followed by a copper-rich zone sitting directly underneath it. There has been, significant drilling there in the past. Again, historical, done in the 90s. It was mostly RC drilling with some spectacular results seen in that historical drilling and the trenches that were put in across the ore body. So for us, we'll be commencing a drilling program in the next month where we'll be targeting that oxide zone with diamond core and the underlying fresh porphyry, which we know from the past drilling with copper results open at depth in all of those holes. So again, a very exciting sort of prospect for us.
Cyprus, we're probably running over time, I assume, are we? Let me just.
Yeah, Brian, no worries. We still have 3 minutes on your
Okay,
session.
well, I'll go. If you keep going down the slides, we won't worry about the reopening of the zinc mine. Strategy, we can dwell on very quickly. The key here is that the first mine will fund the second two mines and also generate enough cash at 50 odd million a year to pay for a major exploration program. And I really want to dwell on the exploration potential of the company, quite apart from building a business. Go to the next slide. Don't worry about investing in Antilles Gold. If you want to invest in Antilles Gold, may I tell you that Spark Plus are working with us on a capital raising program right now. We're in the middle of an issue of shares at a very low price. So an opportunity that if you'd like to join us, get in touch with somebody at Spark Plus. Keep going there, Cyprus, please. Keep going. Okay, this is a very interesting deposit. It's a very large porphyry copper gold deposit. It's as part of a system actually, but we're focused on the El Pilar property, which James is talking about, the oxide cap. It's had a lot of drilling on it, but the drilling has only gone into there's only been shallow drilling into the porphyry deposit. Very good copper grades. Our exploration manager, who's a very talented guy, as I mentioned before, is really wrapped on this property. He thinks that the grades that we are seeing at surface, the first 60, 70 metres going into this porphyry, will be replicated. We have a drilling program coming up starting next month. We'll get some results coming out at the end of September. If they continue, we're going to drill only down to about 300 metres, which is the limit of the drilling equipment we've got there at the moment in Cuba. But if we replicate the surface results, which we have already seen but can't release, we'll have a tiger by the tail. This could be a very, very special project. So we'll know more about that in a couple of months, as I said, but all the indications are that it's going to be pretty spectacular. So in addition to this El Pilar porphyry, we've got a very large VMS structure. It's 40 kilometres long, a lot of exploration, I think 68,000 metres of drilling, et cetera, et cetera. There's another exploration target, but this El Pilar is the one that's going to make us, and it's going to make us fairly soon, I believe. So carry on. I think that's probably all that we need to show. You can see from this one here that we've already done, others have already done aeromagnetic survey. From that survey, our geologist has been able to calculate this porphyry will go down to more than 1,000 metres at depth. And as I said, if the grades are consistent, we probably have a 500 million tonne open pit potential on this one deposit, and there are 3 of them there. So pretty exciting times for us. Next couple of months are going to tell the tale. I really don't have any new horizons. Is the big VMS belt. We haven't done too much on that yet because we've got our hands full, but it's sitting there, as is another VMS belt that the government are going to give us in southeast Cuba, and we have enough exploration to look after the company to look after for the next 10 years. All advanced, all previously explored. Don't need to look at that slide. Thank you. That's it.